all you, Lord. Yes, I would like to introduce my lovely assistant, Jennifer. The most important person that keeps me grounded. Come on up. Come on up. You're supposed to let me do this, so it makes me look good. All right, you feel stable? You feel safe? You good? Carol will catch you if you fall. All right, the Broom, the Booster, and the Gymnast. Crazy title, right? So I tell you what, let's start out tonight. I wanted a corn broom, but it's like they don't make them anymore, hardly. A catcher? Wait, oh, yeah. I got my catcher. Father, just let it come out of me the way you showed it to me for everybody. So we're going to touch on a little bit of physics, a tiny bit of math. Did I hear somebody just go, ugh? But you know what? We're going to make it entertaining because there's something behind it that's going to really resonate later. There's going to be a lot of things that are laid on top of one another. So try and pay attention. There's a lot here, and I need to go through it quickly. Okay? So imagine this as an analogy for us, for you as an individual. Can you picture that? You're a broom. Just think of that for a minute, okay? All right? So in physics, this is called a rigid body. It's one thing. There's no hinges, there's no middle pieces, there's nothing like it. It's a rigid body, okay? Now this has degrees of freedom. We'll get into that later. Weighs, I don't know, I'm going to call this just a pound or two because it's not a corn broom. Now there might be some drama involved here because I have not rehearsed this. This could go very badly for my wife. But then again, it could go very badly for me because if I'm not able to pull it off, then I'm going to be very embarrassed and you guys are going to be left without an example that the rest of the night hinges on. So that's very unfortunate. I'm starting to feel the pressure already. Yeah, I'm going into a death spiral right now. Jennifer, can you help me out?
Go back to 1.
Oh, right, go back to 1. Okay, all right, I am at 1. 1. All right. This is a stalling technique that people do in entertainment right now. They talk about other things instead of doing what they're supposed to do. So about back to 1, did you say go back to 1?
Back to 1.
Back to 1. Okay, that's a term. I don't know if anybody's involved in the entertainment industry or film or theatrical production. Okay, back to 1 means during a take or a scene, theatrical or filmed, if the actor or a camera or somebody flubs up in the middle of the take, in the middle of that moment, they go back to 1. They go back to 1. 1 is, these were your lines, and this is your blocking. I say this, I come here, I look there, I say this, I come back over here, and I'm over here. That's the blocking, the movement of the actor, okay? So, now that I've stalled for that much time, I guess I'm going to have to attempt this. So, I'm going to give myself 3 shots at this. And if I don't get it by the 3rd shot, we're going to all pretend that I did it right. Okay? All right, cool. I'm so glad. I'm going to stall a little bit longer here because...
We're giving you grace.
Oh, that's awesome. But you know, I loved, James, the songs you picked literally at the last second because there was so much power and excitement in them that it really plays into what's going on right now and what's going to be going on in the near future. Okay, so we're going to try something here. So back in the day, a long time ago, there was a thing called a juggler. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Jugglers? Okay. They did things with things that other people were like, I have no idea how this guy does it, but it's mesmerizing. And the king would go, hey, I want you in my court to do these mesmerizing things to entertain my people that are from out of town. So that's what a juggler did. He did things like, you know, balancing a broom in his hand or something silly like that, right? But we're going to make something a little bigger out of it. So this is us, right? Okay, so I'm gonna make an attempt here. Now remember, this is going to play out much later. This all begins with a choice. I had a choice to be here tonight. I had a choice to invest the time and to bring this material here. James made a choice to risk you all to me tonight. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's okay, yeah, well, all right, okay, yeah. All right, yeah, okay, I think I got this. Seriously, not. All right, Jennifer, put out the yolk. Whoa, there we go. Yes! All right. thank you, my lovely assistant. So just remember, we're his workmanship, created for good works. Now, that leads into the booster. You know who's responsible for this? This guy named Elon, who's like cleaning house financially in the US right now, right? Okay. He's kind of a hero. Ooh, where's my pointer? I bought a pointer today. So I'm going to do this old school, like, you know, like a professor back in school. Do you remember, like, boom, 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 boom? Just don't touch the screen. Okay. So I want you to see something. From here to here is huge. That's an understatement. I'm going to say, okay, right here, right there. See these little black things? That's a man. Well, there's a person there. He's right there. He's like as big as my finger. Okay, now compare him to that. Compare him to the width. That thing is about as big around as this room we're in. And it goes that way for like stories and stories and stories. Okay. So you want to know how different it is than that broom from a physics standpoint? Next to nothing. Really. It has one more degree of freedom than that one does. And we'll get into that later. So when this thing comes hurtling into land, it's weighing about 650,000 pounds. One engine has the capability of lifting off three-bedroom suburban houses, foundation, furniture, and all. Straight up. That's how much power, and there's like 30 some odd of these engines here. Okay. Trivia, but it's just like, here's what a juggler did. And this is what Elon Musk does. This is why he became, one of the big reasons he became one of the richest men in the world, and I'll tell you why. Because he's one of the few, if any, that can put product into orbit. But here, check this out. Okay, you guys, I'm old enough to remember the Apollo program. Ken, James, remember the Apollo program? The Saturn V was not quite as big. And you know what they did back then? They launched them into space, and they left them there. Yeah. Which is the equivalent of, okay, Laura, I want to send you to Hawaii, and here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to build a super tanker in the harbor here. I'm going to fill it full of oil, and I'm going to mount a lifeboat on the nose of the super tanker. And then I'm going to launch the super tanker into the harbor, and I'm going to start the engine. And it's going to go boop, 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 and it's going to motor out past the breakwater, and then it's going to spit you off, and then the super tanker is going to sink. And then you're going to coast the rest of the way to Hawaii. Okay, does that make any sense whatsoever? Yeah. Okay, that's the old school way of doing it. And that's why Elon Musk is like, I think there's a better way to do this. Okay? So, there's limited thinking versus expanded awareness. Remember that. That's going to show up later. Watch this. See that dot right there? See that dot? That's that booster. As soon as it pops right through there, it's like at 82,000 feet doing 2,500 miles an hour. That's like if you got in it and flew to LA, you'd be there in an hour. That's how fast this thing's coming down out of the sky. Now watch this right here. You're going to see this puff of... Okay, right there. See those shock waves? That's why jet wings are at the angle that they are. That's showing you that it's actually moving faster than the speed of sound, because that's the shock wave. Ahead of it is faster than the speed of sound, behind of it is slower. Okay, go ahead and keep going, Jim. So it's literally falling. Launches, it starts the engines, and then right when the engines start, it's at 3,200 feet. It's still moving faster than the speed of sound. Right there, it's still doing 100 miles an hour. You can't tell, but it's because that's how big it is. He was literally doing this all the way down with the engines. That's what he was doing. That's the simple process. Of course, there's thousands of lines of code and all sorts of sensors and all sorts of crazy stuff going on with computers the whole time to do that, because there's not a human doing it. Okay, the computers are doing it. Now, let's move on really quickly to the next slide. So this is demonstrating degrees of freedom. All right, 6 degrees of freedom is that, and see that skeleton over there? 240. So when we talk about degrees of freedom in engineering, that means in Cartesian space, which is x, y, z, that's 3. Then on each one of these you have rotation. This way, this way, this way, this way, and this way, this way. That's 6. That's what 6 degrees of freedom are. So, but that's for a rigid body, something that's one solid thing, okay? But a human body is made up of digits, hands, wrists, forearms, bodies, shoulders, legs, okay? And because they're hinged, that's considered a separate piece of mass. It has its own weight, okay? My forearm, there's engineering books that'll show you, like a forearm average human 95th percentile weighs so much. The upper arm weighs so much. The thigh weighs so much. The torso weighs, a head weighs so much. And when you sum them all together, just standing here or sitting normally, your center of gravity is about right through here, okay? Which is going to show up later. So remember that. So 240 degrees of freedom. Okay, the juggler with the broom's working 5 because I have no rotation this way. I'm rotating this way, this way, this way, this way, and I'm translating this way and this way. And I'm translating this way, but I'm not rotating this way. So that's why it's 5, not 6. But the human anatomy is capable of 240-ish degrees of freedom, depending on how you define it. Like each vertebrae can bend, right? So that whole masses of a human is manipulatable. So a human anatomy can move the center of gravity around while it's moving to change where it's at in space. So check this out. So now we get to the gymnast. Okay, so it's considered a multi-body assembly because of what I just talked about. Fingers, arms, hands, wrists, legs, feet, head, right? So we give her a difficulty factor of 10 compared to the booster or the thing there, because she's managing 240 degrees of freedom. She weighs 106 pounds. Let's find out if there's any drama. So here's an example of the mastery of basic Newtonian physics. Okay? Or I'd like to say trying to put a cat that's angry inside of a container. All right, check this out. This is amazing. Look at the height. Crazy. And it's all perfectly under control. That's the joy of mastery. That's going to show up later. Now, she's not done yet. She's still not done. Now, if you notice, see how she spins around here? That's the center of gravity of the mass, of the multi-body right there. That's just the filler step between the hard stuff. Never losing her balance whatsoever. Now watch her face change in a second. Now I'm serious. Because I could die or break my neck at any moment. Not, because she's a master at what she does. Yeah, and falling from the height into splits, that was on purpose. That was a choice she made. But like they say, but wait, there's more. Here's the bonus round for the real nerds out there. Okay? A microsecond is 1/1,000,000th of a second, 1,001. That's a second. Now, if you divided that 1,000,000 times, one of those is a microsecond. Okay? The blink of an eye on average is, well, longer than 350 microseconds. That was kind of a slow one. I looked at you go, That was about maybe 700 microseconds, 700,000. So anyway, that's a long time. It's like a third of a second, right? So we know that with speed and time, we can determine distance of something. So I know if I'm going 60 miles and I did it in an hour, well, we call that 60 miles an hour. If I drive down the freeway, I'll be here and 60 miles from here, like Atlanta or something like that, right? So now get this. Let me jump to here. Over 100 years ago, there were men with brains this big, like Einstein, Niels Bohr, Schrodinger, Heisenberg, all these guys. Well, yeah, he was more on the electromagnetic thing. He wasn't in the quantum thing so much. They figured out what goes on at the atomic and subatomic level of stuff. Okay, stuff that's been there all the time. It's nature. But they were able to, build upon other people's work and get to where they understood quantum, what we call quantum mechanics. Okay, now you guys, we use it every day. You don't realize that, but we do. So let me tell you what goes on in a GPS satellite really quick that you trust every day. Okay, because of time dilation due to where you're at in the gravitational field and how fast you're going relative to something that isn't going as fast or faster, you have what's called time dilation. Okay, I don't know if you ever heard of that, but time for a GPS satellite is not the same as the way we keep time down here. I think they live longer or shorter, I forget. They live by a totally different clock, really. But it's only by 45 microseconds, which is like next to nothing, right? But here's the thing. Because of that, if between there and here, they have atomic clocks, I think more than two or three of them on the satellites that are measuring stuff at this level. Okay, so they send out a pulse that's a timed pulse. And those timed pulses have to be adjusted 45 microseconds. I think it's within a 24-hour period. And if they're not, 45 microseconds in a 24-hour period would turn into a 6-mile error in your Google, take me home. I'm not home. Where's this place at? Okay, to me, that's crazy. And that's all based on quantum mechanics. What goes on at the subatomic level? I mean, it's so crazy that in an atomic clock, I'm getting totally weird and nerdy out here, but the atomic clocks are based on an isotope called cesium-133, okay? And they excite it with a laser of a certain frequency, and what it causes is it's like ringing a bell. It's like bing, you hit a bell and it resonates at a certain frequency and you hear it, right? Well, these atoms ring by the energy of one of the electrons moving to another orbit. And it does it 9.2 billion times a second. And they figure that out. Well, they know that because they send microwaves in there, so that's how they measure the clock. Okay, the speed of the clock. It's insane. So here's the thing. Imagine the Pharisee News Network interviewing Nicodemus after Jesus' resurrection, right? Okay. Pharisee News Network, right? And they say, so Nicodemus, we heard you had a secret meeting with him earlier. You care to come out and share some of your insights you got from him? And he says, yeah, well, I learned, but there are even higher dimensions Jesus demonstrated and spoke of that apparently we have access to that I couldn't comprehend. You remember the story? Nicodemus, you're supposed to be a teacher of Israel. You're supposed to understand this stuff. I'm trying to explain it to you in earthly language, and you can't. What happens if I actually speak plainly of what goes on in this other dimension that you call heaven, or the third heaven, right? So, The foundations of the seen are in the unseen. The GPS in your phone you count on every day is based on nature that God set up from the beginning of time that men were allowed to learn about. Remember that. This is important, okay? Now, so the known began in the unknown. So, this gets into the bowels of heaven and nature. Okay, so the juggler, inventor, and the gymnast, all three have the same two intrinsic properties that once understood and implemented became the key to their success of elevating them above the common. The juggler, hey, look at me, I can do this stuff that you have no clue how I'm doing it. And he's basically, I don't either, but my muscles do it for me eventually because of practice, right? The inventor sees the possibilities beyond the status quo. Well, we build rockets and we throw them away. He's like, that's stupid. And he leverages current day technology, and now he's like the richest man in the world because he reuses billions of dollars 10, 20, 30, 40 times, right? So, it became the key to the success, elevating them above the common. Okay, this is going to start coming home here. Belief. A belief that surpasses what others fail to perceive. You must believe beyond the obvious. You have to believe beyond failure. Inertia is an intrinsic property of mass, no matter what the gravitational field you're in. So here's what inertia is. Okay, here's simple physics lessons. If I had a cardboard box as big as my car, and I pushed it, it would just go whoosh, right? Okay, now if I had my car, and I put the same effort in, nothing would happen, right? Because an object, a mass at rest remains at rest unless acted upon by an outward force. Well, I have to up the force to actually push the car. Okay, well that resistance of it wanting to move, that's inertia. Okay, remember that, that's going to come back. So a willingness to find the limits beyond understood reality and work it despite the pushback. Your own belief has spiritual inertia that moves reality. Okay, we're gonna dig into that a little bit. So the juggler, Elon Musk, the gymnast, all they're doing is managing mass and motion. That's all they're doing. That's the magic behind it. And when you understand it, it's easy. It's not a mystery. You're not the person that goes in the audience going, oh my God, I can't believe that, but there it is right in front of me, you know. But the person who's doing it, it's like, yeah, this is nature. This is how it works. This is easy. It's like, what's your problem? That was Jesus and Nicodemus right there. Okay, now, next. The problem is we're dealing with the spirit of disobedience and things like that. Okay, so thousands of years and billions of people exercising anti-belief has massive inertia against us as individuals, okay? It begins young, it's passed on. Religion is very, very similar. And it sits on you mounted like an MMA wrestler, and you're doomed. So here's what happens. We come into the world like this, right? This is you in heaven, not like this. Remember, God uses the silly things to confound the wise? Okay, so grasp this. In heaven, you're this. Down here, they make you this. Okay? You come down here with a natural connection to God, and then the world and the caregivers that weren't taught any better go, oh, Johnny, hey, Martha, hey, Mary, hey, Charles, I got you covered. Let me teach you how to get by the world here. This is how it's done. Okay, you feel that, Johnny? You feel that, Martha? You feel that, Jimmy? Yeah, that's how it's done down here. Okay? Now here's the difference. Some of us remember things and we're going, there's something wrong with this picture here. I really think we're supposed to be like this. I don't think we're supposed to be doing this. This is hard. This is laborious. This is like eking out a living by the sweat of my brow. I think I read something about it. I'm not supposed to do that. So some people go, yeah, no, this is right. This is the way it is. And they're doing this. They're holding on to something that's true, but not completely true. But it's not doing that, and they're rigid in their belief. And they see the other people sweep, and they're like, hey, I've got this great idea. It's a concept. It's called religion. It's an aspect about another dimension, God, the spirit realm, so on and so forth. You should do what I do. And here's how you can do it, and I can stay here and tell you how to do it. Instead of doing it like they tell you, switch hands. And you do it like this. Okay, you got it? Silly but true. So rigid spiritual people, right? So there you go, left hand, right hand. Now, here's something funny. You remember Daniel, where he talks about he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. All you who labor and are heavy laden, come unto me and learn of me, for my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Right? Remember that? Remember that? But here's the problem. Spirit of disobedience. I just grabbed this picture. I find it fascinating because the Lord's like, hey, here's a whole bunch of symbology in here. Let's unpack that for everybody. Here's you. Where's she sitting? On top of you, suffocating you. Where's her hand? Her hand is covering your connection. This is like your antenna to pick up God's voice, His leading, okay? And she's got her hand covering it. And then down here, we're going to find out in a second, this relates to the surface of the world. This is your flesh. This is your grip on reality, okay? And she's got a hold of it, right? So check this out. And remember, God's this way. She's taking you that way. So now look at this. This is why I wanted a corn broom, but they're really hard to find nowadays. There's a new corn broom. That's the same broom after 10 years of use. 10 years of use. So, living under the world, where's your ability to connect with God out? Literally does. But you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. Check it out. Ah! My props are going to get me in trouble. Okay, yeah. Now, let's pick up this analogy again. Because remember, this was a juggler thing, just trying to demonstrate the manipulation of inertia because I understand it. And I can wow people. Woo. So, I'm going to show you how this is done. It's really easy. So, remember, I said this is my feet on the earth. This is where I interact with everybody in the world. And then this is like my soul, my spirit, and my spirit man up here, right? But all my nubs all the bristles are worn off. I can hardly hear anything, right? But I'm like, you know what? I want to try, and honestly, I don't want to destroy anything. I'm down here going, okay, I just got saved. I'm gonna do this thing, right? All right. Okay, I can't do it. You know why? Where am I looking? I'm looking down. I'm looking at my feet. Okay, so I'm going to up the game. I'm going to look at the spirit realm because everything goes on in the spirit realm, right? That's where the Holy Spirit is. That's where the angels are. That's where the demons are. Well, so I'm going to focus. Oh, a little better, but it doesn't really work. Now, a broom has a center of gravity, and it's easy to find out where it is. It's right there, basically. Basically about right there. Okay, so this is your connection to the third heaven. This is where God's at. This is where God's interfacing you. Remember the ponytails of the Avatar characters? You know how they like put them together and they'd be like, woo, Vulcan mind melt kind of a thing? Well, that's the idea, us with the Holy Spirit and God. The problem is ours has been worn off to the nubs, right? 10 years of slavery in the world, because that's what the spirit of disobedience is trying to do to us, dull our ability to hear, and we're going to see that later. So, when I take my hands off the world, take my hands off the flesh, I take my hands off my eyes off the spirit realm, and I literally focus on my connection only with God. Okay, I'm not looking at my hand. At all. At all. And the Lord said, show them this. And here's why it works. This is my point of action that makes the adjustment around the center of gravity translating in space to keep the center of gravity right there. Because gravity that's going this way this is what's called an unstable system. I just can't leave it. It's unstable. Because gravity gets a hold of the center of gravity. Gravity gets a hold of the center of gravity and then eventually takes it off axis. So when I focus up here, so basically in a rigid body in free space, when acted upon by an outward force, not on the center of gravity, but an arm away from it, it does this. Okay? So when I'm down here, the center of gravity is already moving and I can't see it. It's gone. It's already gone. If I look at the center of gravity, I'm still too late. I'm behind the curve, is what it's called. If Elon Musk didn't know this, that rocket would be crashing every time. Okay? So what happens is when I look here, and the thing begins to accelerate here, well, the distance from here to here is longer, so this moves further than this does. So I will get a feedback loop of information that, hey, this thing's translating that way, but the center of gravity's moved less. So I've got the time to react to go like this and counteract the instability that was created, okay? So now I can sit here and just practically hold it still all day long because I'm literally looking above the center of gravity. I'm looking above the spirit realm where all the angels and the devils fly around and cause havoc, right? So it's only as hard as we make it out to be. It's only as hard as we make it out to be. And one reason it's hard is we don't understand the process. We don't understand the underlying principles of nature. The simplest ones being Newtonian physics, the tougher ones being quantum mechanics, the more mysterious ones being the things of the Spirit. You know, when God said, my ways are above your ways and my thoughts are above your thoughts, He didn't say you couldn't know them. He just says, given your current state and who I am, mine are above yours. Remember Jesus said, no one can be above his master, but he can be equal to his master? Remember that? That was an invitation to elevate. Okay, so here's another crazy thought. Doesn't it say in your law that you were Elohim? He told that to the Pharisees, and they knew how to finish the verse, and you will die like men. Well, Solomon said, death and hell are before the wicked, how much more, death and hell are before the Lord, how much more the wicked and the sinner. So the point is that we were given dominion. We were created in his image and likeness. We're his image bearers. Okay, our forefathers fell. We inherited their sin, which is just the inability to judge perfectly like him independently, because there's only one judge, that's him. So let's move on really quick. So the way of life, so everything we've been doing now is like a mini introduction course into physics, right? It's just, whiteboard stuff. Hey, this is how the theory works, blah, blah, blah. Now applying theory, completely different thing, right? If you don't know how to do, you teach, they say in college. But we don't want to be college professors. We want to be doers. So, last week I had a word. I was allowed to speak a word. And I was reading of it from here. And what you didn't realize is what I was reading from. It was this. This is what came to me. The Lord's like, he started with this. And he says, okay, John, this is the Old Testament. This is the old way. This is what I built up to. And this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm finishing. And then it's like, that's what it ended up looking like. I'm like, wow, okay, we need to show that. So everyone starts in ignorance and darkness. Genesis, darkness was upon the face of the earth, right? Okay, boom, 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 boom. Jesus introduces you to one and says he wants you to be one, as he is one, as the Father is one. In him, him and him, so you know the verse. And then he prophesies, here's what the future is going to come, and it all ends up being back to one. Once Jesus is finished with everything they did, what does he say? He gives it all back to the Father. right? So we began in ignorance and darkness. We're like the audience going, how does he juggle that broom? Oh my God, I can never do that. Wrong attitude. Never say something like that. I could never heal somebody. Never say something like that. Okay? So this is just like a visual poem of the cycle of life. And you end up with full revelation, which is complete light. Remember, the time's coming, there's prophecy, so on and so forth, but at the end, it's all just love. So here's what the Lord was telling me today. Okay, remember you read in Revelation how it talks about the New Jerusalem, this ginormous square thing that's like thousands of miles high and wide, and if you imagine that sitting on the earth, you're like, how does that work? Right? And he says, and the Son of God is the light. There is no sun anymore because he's the light that's in it. What if the light is the complete and full revelation of who he is and who you are in his image? That's the light. There is no darkness in that light, right? There is no fear in perfect love. There is no fear when the light's on in the room, right? So I was like, God, okay, so is there like a way, okay, this is getting nerdy too. Is there a way to graph this out? Is there a way to graph Scripture so you could see multiple verses at the same time in context to one another? And this is the attempt. This is the attempt. Okay, very simple here, just students. You've got your x-axis and you got your y-axis, a standard graph, okay? Now, if you draw a line diagonally at 45 equal between the two, you get a line that's P over T. That is perfection over time. That's what that line represents, okay? Now, this blue box represents where we're at in our current understanding of the kingdom and of God, okay? This line here represents your personal perception limit. This is how much I understand based on what I know, okay? This is your personal obedience limit. This is what you're willing to do and not do when it comes to a revelation of God, okay? This is man's God box, okay? These dots represent data scatter, okay? If I mathematically found the average of all these dots, hopefully it would be going in this direction, upwards, right? So this dot could represent you going, oh, I'm supposed to be baptized. Okay, I get baptized. Real simple. You're right there. You're on perfection. You're on the perfect will of God, right there. Okay? Now, as we go along in our walk, walking by faith, not by what we see, okay, we get a revelation, and then we go, I think I can only pull off that much of it. Or it's like, oh, I've got a revelation of something, and you take it way beyond it was supposed to go. Okay? Remember Deuteronomy, it says, do not add anything to my word, do not take anything away from my word. Whatever my word says, that's what you do. Saul, go into the town, ruin everything, destroy it, take nothing back. And what happens? Those sheep sound really good. I'm gonna bring some of those home. Oh my God, that was the end of his kingdom. That was the end of his kingdom. And then it took years for him to die in battle so that the kingdom was truly ended. Okay, this is why we got to be careful. Got to be careful. This is maturity, is to learn to match your obedience with the revelation. And then you end up being on this line. Okay? So this is what sin is. You're falling short of the mark. Okay? You didn't fulfill everything that was revealed to you. Here, you did way more than what was revealed to you. Simple. So this line represents growing in revelation, the ultimate being unquestioning comprehension. That's the mind of Christ. That's where Jesus dealt with, right? Okay. The full limit of the x-axis is the execution of his word with fearless obedience. Perfect obedience, right? Okay, so many as led of the Spirit, they are the sons of God. Now, let's build on this graph, I think. Okay, so remember the spirit of disobedience? So we were living out here in the hinterlands where it says that, he set the times and boundaries of our seasons, that though we grope about blindly, that hopefully we may run into him. And at some point we do, and we go, okay, I want in the box. Because you are who you say you are. You've taken that little modicum of your ability to believe, and you placed it in his testimony as being true. Now you're in the box, like we're all in the box right now, together. So, the spirit of disobedience is trying to keep you deaf and blind. It wants to keep your heart hard. You want to be slow of heart. So here's the thing. God's voice is crystal clear. He's broadcasting the same. It's always been the same. A quiet, still voice. It's right behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. It's very simple. But if you're down here in any of this stuff, you ever hear a party next door in the next room? Or you come out of the party, you hear all the frequencies, you're at the high-end guitars and the trumpets and all that stuff, and you go into the bathroom, a couple rooms over, and all you hear is the bass, right? It's because all the high frequencies have been filtered out. They've been attenuated. They've been dampened, squelched, okay? Because of all this noise, because of so not being in tune, because of your broom, your connection with God being so blunted, okay? So the idea is to get out of here by doing what Trish said, intimacy and just feeding on his word, even though you may not know what it says. It doesn't matter. You eat a steak, it goes in your belly. You don't know what goes on down there. But it makes you stronger, right? It's the same thing. So God's voice never changes. It's growing our ability to discern and to hear. Now, down here, carnal obedience is just uninspired self-will. That's all it is, okay? And that's dangerous. And here's why. You might know of people, spiritual, highly spiritual people, can be right up here on the border, way up here, but they put no feet to anything they've seen or heard in the spirit realm, okay? That's like the guy that got the talent and said, listen, I know you're a hard man, taking what you didn't plant, so on and so forth. I was afraid of you, so I took your talent and I buried it. He's like, you wicked and slothful servant. Take that from him, give it to the one with 10, because I know he can make a profit. Take this guy, throw him out into outer darkness where there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, we don't want to go here. We want to do this. It's revelation matching obedience. And then you got this other type of people down here, where it's like, oh, I got the Jesus credit card. I know it's got power. I'm my own man. I'm an entrepreneur in the spirit realm. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to do all this Jesus stuff. And I'm going to do all these miracles because I got the Jesus credit card. Jesus, in Jesus' name. And then time comes, and then Jesus is like, hey, I hear you. I see what you did. You know what? But I never knew you. I never knew you. We never had a single conversation. Go away from me, you workers of lawlessness. And we're not talking the 10 Commandments. We're talking God going, this is how I made you. These are the works designed for you. I want you to do this now. And you go, yes, sir. Boom, you go do it. No more, no less. And you're on this line, right where we belong. Okay? Now, so where does perfection live? And I don't mean perfection as this ugly, weird, stifling, bondage thing at all. So here's Jesus' God box. This is like 100% of the possibilities in God. Jesus said with God, anything is possible. Anything is possible. And a lot of it is outside everything a Christian could think of he's supposed to do. Okay? Way beyond. So here's Jesus. He's living along here. We don't hear anything about his life until he shows up to John, basically, except for when he's like, hey, I'm supposed to be about my Father's business. I'm not lost. Okay, that's noted. But then when it comes to here, he comes to John and says, hey, you know what? I need to be baptized. What? You need to baptize me? No, we need to fulfill everything that's correct. So do this now, okay? And he's like, okay, fine. He gets baptized. Then boom, what happens? I only say what I hear the Father say. I only do what I see the Father do. He's got the perfect match of revelation and obedience in every step that he took for the 3 years that he walked. So he's operating in the anything is possible with God out here. So now you've got these creative miracles like water turning into wine. casting out demons in mass, healing the sick, walking on water. Okay, that's a little beyond balancing a broom in the palm of my hand. Feeding the 5,000. Raising the dead, and ultimately succeeding in the 3-day grave limit that was prophesied for him. Okay, you know when it says that he's created good works for us to walk in before the time? Well, so did Jesus. It was all right there. You know, you search the scriptures looking for eternal life, but they speak of me, he says. That was his reference book of like, here's everything that's going to happen to me. Everything that's promised in my life that's going to occur is in this book. So he knew that none of his bones would be broken. He knew that his body wouldn't see corruption. Because of the joy set before him, because he was always in God's perfect will, right? The kingdom of God is not meat and drink, but it's God's way of doing things. Peace and joy in the Holy Ghost. That's why Jesus operated in this all the time, okay? This is where preparation meets opportunity, obedience meets provision, okay? Now, I think it's one last one here. Now, here's where we come in. This is the age we're getting into. Some of you have already experienced this. God's saying, I'm telling you all this because you have a potentiality that you've probably never tapped into or don't really realize. I mean, massive, and we're going to get to that. So you're going to get this vision of like, I'm going to be doing that, and then you're going to go through all these carnal gyrations of I could never do that, or I don't know how to do that, blah, blah, blah. No. That's low life thinking, okay? And at some point, the opportunity will show up, and the idea is to just be there for it. Just be there for it. Just be there for it, okay? I mean, this is what I'm looking forward to. I'm teaching myself all this stuff because I want to be available because I understand the process. So I'm not fearful and unbelieving. I understand the process. The Roman centurion, the man attributed with the greatest faith in all of Israel. I know how this works. I'm a man under authority. I say to the servant, do this, and he does that. I know you're a man of authority. You say this, and you do that. So you just say the word, and it'll be done. And Jesus is like, mind blown. It's like, yep, just however you want. There you go. Boom, done. Okay? So that moves us to this. Back to one. Your ability to believe is absolutely and completely the most powerful force in the universe. It's your God-given superpower. All right? Like Jesus said, everywhere he went preaching the kingdom, he prefaced it with, change your mind. Change your mind. Just change your mind. Because the spirit of disobedience has had you bent downwards and has rubbed you raw. And that's why a lot of people couldn't believe. Because it's like, this is so far in outer space, like Elon Musk. I mean, I understand engineering to a degree, and I watched that booster land, and I'm just like, my jaw's on the ground going, this is computer generated. There's no way this is real. I mean, I know it's real, but it's so hard to fathom. So here's some takes out of Scripture. You guys know these. You know the word. Oh, unbelieving generation, stop doubting and believe. Don't be afraid, just believe. How long must I put up with you because you have so little faith? These are a lot of order, but it doesn't matter. How long must I remain with you? For God, nothing shall be impossible. But he must ask in faith without doubting. Everything is possible to the one who believes. The juggler believed. Elon Musk took 1.4 million pounds and believed. The gymnast, I'm not even going to attempt anything, believed. Yeah. But, it was said here once before, not long ago, the Kingdom 101, the gymnast, you saw what she did. You know what the first thing she learned to do as a 3-year-old in gym class? Huh? Tumbling. It's how to fall, get back up, and not be hurt. That's what Peter said. Count it all joy, brethren, when all these testings and trials come upon you, because they're testing your ability to believe despite the circumstances, despite what's going on around you. I could have caved to the audience pressure. I could have caved to my own fear that I'm not going to be able to pull this off and taken the easy way out. That's the temptation, right? Okay, remember this. The parable of the sower is the linchpin to all parables. And that is, information is passed on to you. Information was passed on to Einstein, Niels Bohr, Schrodinger, all those guys. Information was passed on to Musk. They built on that. Jesus passed on the keys to the kingdom, the secrets of kingdom physics. Yet no one at the time could hardly grasp it. But it says in the later times, men shall run to and fro and increase in knowledge, right? And they shall do exploits that know their God, right? We're living in that time. It's because we need to build on what people have done before and know that it's possible. It just takes practice. That little girl at 3 tumbling, and then adding one little move, and then tumbling, and then crashing and burning, and then she built on it. So you can build on your ability to manipulate reality like Jesus did by practicing one little thing at the time by the Spirit's leading. Okay? The key is inspired action. Everything Jesus did was inspired by the Holy Spirit that was with him every moment. Okay? So, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Humanly speaking, yes, it's impossible, but with God, everything is possible. If you have faith, the ability to believe, and do not doubt. Doubt's like throwing water on the fire. Okay, the idea is to build your belief so big somebody could back up a fire truck and nothing happens to you. Do you remember the valley of the brook Kishon, where Elijah said, hey, you worshipers of Baal, if your God is who he says he is, have him call down fire. Nothing happens. So then he's like, okay, pour some water on it. No, pour some water. No, Phil, no, just, okay, now it's got a everything's drowning in water. And then he calls on God. Water, sacrifice, everything's gone. Okay. Jesus believed. Nothing dented his ability to believe. His ability to believe was so strong that he could manipulate reality in the moment like that. Okay? That's within your reach if you can believe. And you can learn to believe. That's what we need to take away. So, if you have faith, the ability to believe, and do not doubt, even if you say to this, fill in the blank, it will happen. Truly, truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I am doing, even greater. Having faith the size of a mustard seed, which is an undeniable vision to you. He used the smallest example there was, because that's what they knew at the time. But if something is as real to you as though it literally is in your hand, that's the kind of belief he's talking about. And it can be felt. Because here's what happens. What man hopes for something that he has already seen? He doesn't. But faith is the substance of things for, the evidence of things not yet seen. Speaking, declaring that it's going to be true, acting like it's going to be true, divinely inspired, and over the course of the gestation period, it appears. And when it appears, you will feel a lift off of you because you don't have to maintain that reality in you anymore, because there it is. There it is. Okay? And I'm speaking from experience with that. I know it's true because I've experienced it. So, having the faith of an undeniable vision, you can say, again, fill in the blank, and it will obey you. So, remember, Jesus' ministry lasted about 1,095 days, right? But it only took one day for him to be crucified. Where has the church's focus been, pretty much? Probably 95% here, 5% there, but yet that is what? 0.1% of his ministry? So you really got to ask yourself, what was he doing? What was he downloading? He was teaching and demonstrating the powers to come, okay? So I just want to leave you with this. Long-suffering is just patience, waiting for the manifestation while under fire. So, I hope that anytime you pick up a broom now, you're going to go, you know what? There's more to this life than what I see. Okay? And you'll look in the mirror and realize that you're way more than what the world or you think yourself is. So, that's what I got for you.